Hey folks, it's Steve from M4. Got a different kind of project today. I have a powershade brand pull down shade in our 2024 Dynamax EUROPA that is lost its tension and just fallen down again. I've had two other ones do this, and Dynamax sent me replacements for those, but obviously there's some sort of repetitive problem with these shades. And I have taken one apart already. I'm pretty sure I know what it is. There's a spring that backs off of a spool, basically, that as you're bouncing down the road, it must be vibrating loose, backing off, and then the shade drops. On the other ones, I had one shade drop. On this one, which is in the upper bunk left, I've had both shades drop. When it's the lower shade on the other ones, I've been able to just pull out the lower shade and take it apart and work on it. There's no need to keep getting replacements if there's a better fix for this, because they're going to keep having the problem. Apparently they switched to powershade a couple years ago. Powershade makes a lot of residential shades and things like that, so my guess is the transition to something that's going to be vibrating down the road is some sort of issue. So you know what the powershade is and how it works. This is a pull down, non-automated, and retracts back up. And then you have your blackout too that does the same thing. There are adjustment wheels on the outside of the shade to do tension and position. You never want to turn those the opposite direction because it will cause the same issue. They do have little arrows, which you can't see because it's up in the valance. That is not the case on this one. This one simply was not touched, and bouncing down the road, it dropped. So the catch on this one, though, is this valance has to come off, as far as I know. There's supposed to be some sort of clips on the top of the shade, but I'm looking up in there and I don't see anything that's easy to release. So on this shade, or most of the screws in the entire RV, are square head number 2, or you could use a Phillips, but a square head's going to seat in there and work a little bit better. And to remove the valance, there's 2 screws that go into either end on the bottom, and then there's 2 behind the shades that are upright. I'll try to get a picture of those so you can see where they are. It's going to obviously be a little awkward laying on my back to get that to those 4 screws. We'll see if we get that on video or not. More so, I want to take apart the shade and show you what the spring is doing and possible fixes. So I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but there's 2 screws that go kind of at an angle on the end of the valance. And then if I pull the shades up, go to the outside and up, I don't know if you can see, but there's 2 screws that go upward into the valance, and I don't see any clips to release. So I'm going to get those 4 screws out and get the valance off right now. What I'm using for the tool is an extension with some length on it, with a number 2 square head in order to get those screws out. Easiest way to do it. You do need some length to be able to get up into the back, and this tool will work pretty good. This just happens to be a cheap handle with a little bit better bit, but a good little kit to have. All right, it's doable. I'm gonna have to get in there all the way to see what's going on here. Not sure if you can see or whether I'm blocking the whole view, but there's 2 screws on L brackets And there's going to be 2 screws. I'm going to leave them into the wall. I'm going to take them off the sides on these L brackets. And there should be one more here. Now this one is easier to see, like on the bedroom. It's going to be even more difficult because the dresser's underneath it, so there we go. Oh, okay. So the shade is actually connected to the valance, so I guess that makes sense. So we're going to take this to the table and see what's going on. All right, so here's what's going on. It is indeed held in place with plastic clips. They're not like typical home ones that I've seen on shades that you put a screwdriver in, pry them out a little bit, and then they come off. These seem to be spring-loaded. So this is the back of the valance and the back of the shade. If I push it down, let me do that again. If I push it down, then it'll rotate out. Now, I don't think you can do that with the valance up in the window, because I think it's going to end up hitting the window before it actually releases on the clip. You might get lucky and be able to do it. I'll try another one, but same thing on this side. I'm going to push down and then I'm going to rotate it. Yep, let's get the shade out of the way. All right, we got a little more room. So I'm going to push down and then I'm going to rotate it out and it's going to come out of the clip. And that's what the clip looks like. So to put it in, it's going to be the reverse. It's going to be getting it hooked on this bottom side, giving it tension to push it down, and it should snap into place. Again, I'm not sure whether you can do it without taking the valance off or not. All right, so this is the side that was facing the window. I'm going to turn it over so we're looking at the front of the shade, and there are instructions out there on how to make the adjustments. As I mentioned, there's wheels on the end, and they do have arrows. I'm not sure if you can see it, which way to turn them. You can turn them clockwise to tension it, and that'll also raise it. Counterclockwise, I think, is going to release the spring inside, and that's going to be an issue. On the other end, these adjustments are determining how high the shade goes before it stops. So it's like a stop set. So when you release it and it comes up, it's going to stop. And I think plus and minus on that one is fine. As you can see, though, they're not tensioned. There's no way to re-tension them with the knobs. It just won't go anywhere. So these actually just pull off. You get them out of the way. Set those aside. Go ahead and do all four. Now, I mentioned on one of the other ones, just the lower shade was having an issue. So there is actually enough room to pull the lower shade out. And then while it's still up in the window valance. And you can get it in and out of there and do the bottom one if you have to only do the bottom one. Be careful not to bend the bracket too much, or you might have to retension it in. Being that this one has both the lower and the upper one that's having a problem, I'm going to have to go ahead and take the end bracket off to get them off. There are a couple screws here. All right, so small Phillips. This is a number 1. Seems to fit best. Now, always remember on the face of this, the shades roll up the back side, so they're actually rolling up counterclockwise. So this bracket should now come off. And it does. And now I have the 2 roller shades. I'm going to just do the blackout shade for now. Set the other one aside. Now it's going to be a little bit cumbersome putting them both back in, tensioning them, rolling them up and everything else. So actually there aren't screws on the end with the spring, and I believe this is the end with the spring. This cap inside actually just pulls out. Try to get a decent angle on that. And there's a spring in here. And there's the mechanism. That's what's giving you the spring tension and what's coming loose. And here's the problem right here. Easy to see. So it's got this adjustment nut that goes inside the tube, and these are there's corrugation on the inside of the tube that this engages in. So this is simply coming, the spring is coming unscrewed from that plastic nut. So either A, they didn't get them tightened all the way originally, or B, as it's rattling down the road, and obviously I'm not going to be able to duplicate that there, this is backing off, and as soon as it backs up off, the shade just drops. So this threads have to be engaged on the spring. Now what I'm going to do though, to try to prevent it from backing off, because it shouldn't, is I'm going to put a little bit of glue or RTV or epoxy, something that's going to give it a little bit of tension between, or stickiness between, the spring and the plastic. Obviously it's not originally designed that way, but it needs something so it's not rattling loose and falling off. So that's my next step. Okay, I had talked about possibly gluing the spring onto the wheel. May not be necessary. What I have instead done is, if you continue to tighten this a little bit more beyond just the top of the threads, it'll back over itself a little bit, and by backing over itself just a couple turns, it kind of locks it all into position, and it really doesn't want to come off. So that's what I'm going to try this time, instead of glue or adhesive in there, and then we'll see how it goes from there and make an adjustment if necessary. So on the other end of the tube is this connector, and I show this later in the video. This is controlling the height adjustment of the shade once it's closed. So at this point I'm not going to do anything to this one. So we'll touch on a little bit later the possible problems of that being unwound too far or pulled down too far, where the nut on the apparatus inside comes off the end and gets stuck. Okay, so this stop setting, and I noticed this on another one, and this one's doing the same thing, is having an issue. I think it exceeded the distance that it needed to go inside, which is a little bit of a design flaw really, if you're going to turn the knob and it's going to go too far. And I got to look up which way to turn it anyway. But this end cap, remove the screw in the middle, and then there are a couple little tension snaps on either side, whether you just pull this off or get the spring clips to work. Usually a little screwdriver work pretty good. So now you have the cap. Yeah, we can get that where you can see it. And now you have this end. If you just push onto a flat surface, the insides are going to come out. And actually this one looks okay. I don't know why. On the other one, this thread had gone all the way off the end, which incapacitated it. So I was mentioning this before. If you go too far in one direction, it just goes up against the end. If you go too far in the other direction, it'll actually come off and get cockeyed, and it jams the whole thing. So you don't want to go counterclockwise too far, or you're going to have that issue. For now, this one's going on, and we need to reinstall the fixture, or reassemble the fixture. I want to note that the end bracket, because I fought with one of these a little bit before, trying to get the end bracket in the right spot. There's a couple notches here, and this is the flat blade. It needs to go inside those notches and in order to get those screws lined up and in place. One roller shade's easier to handle. Two roller shades makes it a little bit of a hand dance in order to be able to get everything put together. So I'm going to take that off for a minute. I'm going to lay this down, and hopefully you can see what's going on. I'm going to roll the shades up all the way. Again, this is looking at it from as it would be mounted on the inside. So the spring is going on the left side, the adjustment is going on the right side. The black one goes above, and you want it rolling down with the roll towards the inside of the RV. And that gets dropped on there. And I'm going to move that down a little bit for a second. And then the other one the same way needs to go on. And of course I forgot my spring. I got to put that back in. And that needs to line up to drop in. The wheel needs to line up to drop in. And then it will drop all the way into place like that. And that needs to go onto the bottom. Now these will need to be retensioned, but we're going to pull them up kind of in the position pretty close to where we want them when they're installed and rolled up. And then we can get that bracket and put it in. I'm going to be blocking your view here a little bit, but without getting the other side mixed up, you need to line up both of these at the same time, and then they'll drop into place like that. Now we can put the two screws into the end of the bracket. Turn it so you can see what's going on. And the other one. Now I'm getting better at these as we go, and I had shot some of the video and had a problem pushing the wrong button at the wrong time. So you probably can't notice shirt's a little bit different because I had to redo this part. But no worries. So we're going to go ahead and put the 4 knobs on for the position, and we're going to put the ones on the other end for the tension. So with the shades in the up position, we're going to start tensioning these, and a little hard to see what's going on, but I'm just tensioning them. They have to go in the direction of the arrows. And they say about 15 to 20, but it seems like it's a lot more than that. So both of these need to be tensioned up. And then we'll test the tension with it down, but it's kind of a feel for it. And we'll get an idea of whether they're going to return back up or not. See, not enough tension, so I'm going to put a lot more tension into that one. Just keep turning it clockwise. Might be off screen until it feels about right. You can tell it's starting to try to go up. Needs a lot more tension. Once you have some tension in here and you can get the shade into the position to put the lock, it's a little bit easier. I'm going to tension the black one since I'm here. Just doing them both turning. Let's see if we're getting anything out of that yet. It's starting to come up a little bit. The black one is going up, but it's going slowly, so we're going to continue to tension. So the only direction you should ever be turning the tension wheels is clockwise. If you go the other way, it's probably going to back off that spring inside, and usually you're not going for less tension. So that's getting there, but it still needs more tension on that one. Still needs more tension on that one. Once it starts getting closer on the tension, make your adjustments a little bit smaller. Alright, let's see what we got. It's a slow shade, but it's a real slow shade. And I'm going to give it just a little bit more. Should be pretty good. That's good. So now you notice that the gap here is a little bit big. The way to adjust these is turn this one just slightly counterclockwise. Put the shade to where you want it. The black shade's going to need to be a little bit down further than the blackout shade, which is the tan one. I'm going to loosen this a little bit. And you want it about there. Now this shade is going to go up too high, so easiest way is to pull it into position, loosen or tighten down the knob so it stops. You don't need to crank on it, just till it stops, and that's how it knows where to go. You can go a little more speed if you want. I think I'm good with that on this one. And it's ready to put back up. Alright, so balance. We got to go towards the front, so we got to flip this over so that the blackout or the black curtain is towards the window. We need to lean it. Actually, we're going to put it on this front edge first on both sides. And get the tension down, and it should snap into place. to be that ready to put up. It's a fairly heavy too, so it is going to sit on those brackets. It does adjust left to right just by moving it. And let's get it hung back onto the wall. Not sure how much you can see at this point, but bring the camera closer so you can see what's going on here. It has the two brackets at the top, and that's where those screws are going up into the bottom of the valance. A little hard to get to. And then the two on the sides. So the valance will sit up there in position pretty well and center itself on those brackets. And then it's a matter of lining up in there and getting the screws back in. I'm going to try the high ones first, if I can see them. Yep.
Yo.
Hey.
You getting stuff done?
Trying to. It's a little harder to get to stuff than anticipated sometimes. Silly stuff.
Yeah. I'm having a reasonably productive day so far.
So far?
See how it goes. Headed to the depot. You need anything?
No, I'm all good.
Alright.
So I'm fighting this a little bit for a couple of reasons. I got this is a third screw out of 4, but the way that they did the valance up against the molding is a little silly. All right, so I'm going to show you something here. Valance is back up, and I seem to be a little crooked, but it is all the way down on the stops that were already there, which is interesting. But what I was fighting there is the way that they did the valance on this side. It is up against the molding, so it's not sitting flush against the wall. I don't know if you can see that or not. And it's up on this side. I could take it down and adjust all the brackets, which I might do, because if I look at the other side, the valance is flat, and I'm guessing it's not up against the molding. So I'm going to take a better look at this because I don't like the way it's looking crooked, though I think it's always been like that. So let's see on our shade 1, shade 2, so that's functioning. That was fun. Let's see how I edit this video and what is included and what's not included. There's a lot of trial and error on getting those adjustments done and getting it back together. But it's doable. And should we be doing it? Probably not. But they got to fix whatever the original problem is on these shades. But it is fixable without getting new shades and everything else all the time.